on for the duration of the meeting and to keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Please click the raised hand function if you wish to speak, and you should be able to find this for those of you who've got that part of Zoom working under participants. Members who wish to make a point of order or personal explanation will need to interrupt the current speaker, and in relation to the point of order must indicate the rule or law and the way in which they consider it has been broken before proceeding. There is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed, and the public broadcast will be paused. If it is not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such times as it can be reconvened. Can I remind members that all virtual meetings will be recorded and that these recordings will be published on the Council's website. Members, I will begin by calling your names to establish your presence. Please confirm you are present. Councillor David Ambrose Smith.
Present.
Councillor Barbara Ashwood.
Present.
Councillor Anna Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Henry Batchelor.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Ian Bates.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Chris Bowden.
Present.
Councillor Anna Bradnam.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Simon Bywater.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
Present.
Myself, Councillor Matt Maguire, present. Councillor Liza Machini.
Present.
Councillor Lucy Nasinga.
Present.
Councillor Lena Nieto. I believe we have her apologies, actually. Councillor Kevin Reynolds.
Present.
Councillor Claire Richards. Councillor Claire Richards.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Rogers.
Present.
Councillor Tom Sanderson.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Josh Schumann.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Jocelyn Scott.
Present.
Councillor Mike Shellings. I think Councillor Mike Shellings may be late. Shall so record that. Councillor Mandy Smith.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Amanda Taylor.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Simone Taylor.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Steve Tierney.
Present.
Councillor Susan van der Ven.
Present.
Councillor Joan Whitehead.
Present.
John Williams.
Present.
Councillor Graham Wilson.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Julie Wisson. Councillor Julie Wisson.
Present.
Oh, okay. Councillor Tim Wotherspoon.
Present.
Sorry, excuse me, Chair. I think you may have jumped a page, so we need to.
Oh, did I?
I was about to make a point of general.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I tried to put these on single pages so I don't have to turn that over. But you're quite right. I better let the others come in, haven't we? Yeah, sorry about that. We'll go through that quickly. All right. Second page was Councillor David Connor. Councillor Adela Costello.
Present.
Councillor Steve Count.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Sandra Crawford.
Present.
Councillor Steve Criswell.
Present.
Councillor Kevin Cuffley. I believe we have apologies for him. Councillor Peter Downs.
Present.
Councillor Lorna Dupre.
Present.
Councillor Liz Every.
Present.
Councillor Jan French.
Present.
Councillor Ryan Fuller. Councillor Ian Gardner.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Derek Giles,
Present.
Councillor Mark Goldsack,
Present, Chairman.
Councillor John Gowing,
Present.
Councillor Linda Hartford,
Present.
Councillor Nicola Harrison,
Present.
Councillor Anne Hay,
Present.
Councillor Roger Hickford,
Present.
Councillor Mark Howell,
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Sam Hoy,
Present.
Councillor Peter Hudson,
Present, sir.
Councillor Bill Hunt, Councillor Bill Hunt,
Present, Chair.
Councillor David Jenkins,
Present.
Councillor Linda Jones,
Present.
Councillor Noel Kavanagh,
Present.
Councillor Sebastian Kindersley,
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Simon King,
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Ian Manning.
Present, Chair.
Right, I think that covers everybody, and apologies to those of you who I didn't realise were here, but were here for not reading your names out in the first place. Apologies. I believe we have apologies have been received from Councillors Matthew Shooter and David Wells and Councillor Nieto. Councillor Shelling's going to be late. Do we have any others?
Chairman, just to let you know that Councillor Connor will be joining in a minute.
Good for him. Right, we will welcome him with open arms. Thank you. Right, the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the 13th of October 2020, and we are asked to approve the minutes of that meeting as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to click the raised hand function, hopefully on the right of your screen now? I'm not seeing any raised hands. So on the basis of the recommendation of approving minutes is carried out, I will sign when we return to the office. I move on to Chairman's announcements.
Thank you.
Councillor Connor has joined us. Welcome, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry I'm late. I just couldn't get in. Sorry.
No problem. Colleagues, it is with deep regret that I report the recent death of former county councillor and honorary alderman John Powley, who represented the Soham and Fordham Villages division on behalf of the Conservative Party from 1967 to 1977 and from 1997 to 2013. During this time, he was the Cabinet Member for Social Services and Corporate Services, as well as Chairman of the Council from 2011 to 2013. The Council's thoughts are with his family, friends and colleagues at this very sad time. Before I move on to us asking Council to observe a minute's silence, I'm going to invite, first of all, Councillor Bill Hunt to say a few words, and then I'm going to invite Councillor Lucy Singer to also say a few words. So over to you, please, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I first met John about 20 years ago, and almost immediately he gave me a torrent of advice about what not to do and what I should do. And I must say that almost everything he told me was useful and was correct. There was much more to John than just a local county councillor. He was an MP for Norwich South, and he was also, I know, on the City Council here in Cambridge. When he was the chair of this council, I saw him really perform brilliantly when we had public protests and items of various bits and pieces were thrown from the public gallery, and John really showed his mettle and kept everybody in order. Just fairly recently, I met him and spoke with him, and he was delighted he'd managed to find a bungalow for sale in Ely, and he moved from Soham to Ely. But unfortunately, he and his wife didn't have very much time in the bungalow in Ely to enjoy their retirement. The thing about John was that he wasn't just a Conservative. he was acting for all the people, and his actions and the things that I was involved with him, particularly in Soham, were across the board completely. He had a lifetime of public service. And so on behalf of the people of not just Soham, but all of Cambridgeshire, I'd like to say thank you, John. You will be missed.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councillor.
Chair.
Councillor Singer.
Thank you. John was a member of this council and chair of this council when I first joined it, and I also remember him well. And I also remember the occasion that Bill refers to when he was having to deal with some quite challenging times as chair of the council. He was the personification of a traditional local councillor, kind of what everybody would picture when a local councillor is mentioned. And having been involved in local government in Cambridgeshire for so many years, his knowledge of the history of both controversial and uncontroversial issues in the council was without measure. He was incredibly knowledgeable about the area. And we also offer our great sympathy to his family at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singer. We will now observe a minute's silence in memory of John. Thank you, members. I was exceptionally proud to hear that the Council's communications team has received a Bronze National Award for its work in communicating with communities in Peterborough around the rapid response to rising infection rates in the city. This prestigious national award recognises the achievements of communicators in the public sector. I am delighted to report that Democratic Services Officer Nick Mills has won the Association of Democratic Services Officers Learner of the Year 2020. I'm also sure that you will wish to join with me in wishing Democratic Services Officer Rob Sanderson a long and happy retirement. On Wednesday, 28th of October, I attended the topping out ceremony of the new Arkenbury Weald headquarters. This year, because we are working differently due to COVID, we were not able to commemorate Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day in the same way. On Remembrance Sunday, I laid a wreath on behalf of the people of Cambridgeshire at the War Memorial at Hills Road, Cambridge. I also recorded a special video encouraging everyone to observe the 2-minute silence wherever they were working, whether it be at home or in the office. Earlier this year, I announced a monthly scheme to celebrate the fantastic work of those who have gone above and beyond in supporting their local communities since lockdown began in March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The scheme will run for at least 6 months, and I would like to remind members to continue to send in their nominations. During the first week of every month, I will issue a certificate to those nominated. I'm delighted to report that I have issued a further 3 certificates during November to individuals, businesses, and community groups in recognition for their excellent work throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Full details of each member's nominations can be seen on the Council's websites. That concludes announcements for today. The next item is item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Under this item, members are asked to declare interest under the Code of Conduct in any item on the agenda for today's meeting if they are not registered on the Register of Interests. May I have any declarations now? Please use the raised hand function. No? Right, moving on to item 4, which is public question time, which allows for 4 members of the public to ask questions at the council meeting, provided they have given advance notice. No questions were notified by the deadline. Item 5 is petitions, and this allows members of the public to present petitions in accordance with the agreed protocol. No petitions were notified by the deadline. Item 6, item for determination from the General Purposes Committee. We have one item. The item relates to the Treasury Management Report, Quarter 2, which was discussed by General Purposes Committee on the 24th of November this year. And I ask the Chairman of the General Purposes Committee, Councillor Count, to move the recommendation as set out on the Council agenda, and that the Vice Chairman of Councillor Hickford was to second this. Councillor Count.
I do so move, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickford.
Chairman, I so second and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Count, do you wish to present the item, the report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is to recommend noting the Treasury Management Report for Quarter 2 2020-2021 that went to General Purposes Committee November 24th and was approved unanimously. The volatility of the difficulty in predicting the outcomes of coronavirus are included in some of the revised UK and global markers and predictions encapsulated in the report, which will continue to be difficult to accurately predict for some time to come. What is clear is that as well as the tragic effect on individuals, communities, and our way of life, the financial grip and effect on GDP and government resources of this pandemic is both severe, and the residual effects will be with us for quite a while to come. In the short term, the paper highlights a 2.6 no growth for the third quarter, with the impacts of a deal or no deal from Brexit highlighted as a focal point. However, the impacts of coronavirus have yet to be measured and fully understood. Matters have moved on since the published paper was prepared regarding the Public Works Loan Board, with a 100 points increase now reversed out. However, although it was expected to have rules tightened for commercial borrowing, it was not generally expected for this to relate to any existing commercial investment activity that may be on a council's existing balance sheet. The financial implications of this on the MTFP will be reflected at GPC once the information is fed in, as well as the strategic implications in the next iteration of the Treasury Management Report. This may well provide further opportunity for municipal bond issues, and we will maintain an active brief in securing the best position for the council. This report also brings to your attention the successful procurement exercise, which has resulted in the change of our banking provider to NatWest. I should highlight that we should take great pride in our commercial returns to date, which amount to £42 million, which we have not asked council taxpayers to find to deliver their services. And I should also note that the council also to note that in terms of overall debt, net borrowing, as indicated in the paper, sits at 676.9 million, with an authorisation for external debt in excess of 1 billion. I'm happy to take any questions regarding this report and recommend it to council for noting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I see no raised hands, so it is open to debate. Nobody is indicating. So, Councillor Hickford, you reserved your right to speak. Do you wish to speak at this point? Does nobody else?
Nothing to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, could you just repeat that, Councillor?
I said nothing to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Nothing to add. Okay, thank you. In that case, we will now move to a vote. I'm not seeing, I think there's probably general consensus in support of the recommendation. So if anybody disagrees with that, could you raise your hand now? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next item. Thank you. Next item is item 7, which is the Local Pension Fund Board Annual Report, which is included in your council agenda on pages 7 to 30. Can I ask Councillor Simon King, Chairman of the Cambridgeshire Local Pension Fund, to move receipt of the report? You do not require a seconder, Councillor King. Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You have the report in the papers, and I have little to add to that. Just to say that it's a great, I consider it a great honour and privilege to be chairman of the board, and I have been reappointed 3 times, or appointed and reappointed 3 times. And we're very well supported by officers, and I am very well supported by my fellow board members. So it is really a very pleasant role. I just want to say a couple of things that aren't covered by the report, because you'll see that it actually covers the period from July of last year to April of this year. And our April meeting was cancelled due to the coronavirus. But since then, we've had a number of very positive developments. We've successfully had all of our meetings since April virtually, and it took a little bit of getting used to it first, but I think we're all much better at it than we were initially. I want to pay particular tribute to David Brooks, who actually has retired. The last pension board meeting was his last one, and the next pension board meeting is in January, and we will have a new board member then. And we carried out a recruitment exercise because we were all a little bit worried about making sure that we had a good quality of board members. Well, amazingly enough, we had over 70, well, approximately 70 applications to replace David Brooks. And again, I had the honour and privilege of being part of the interviewing panel, as did David Brooks. And we appointed a lady called Val Lim, who is coming to her first meeting in January. She came as an observer to the last meeting, but she's very well qualified, and I think she will do a very good job in supporting the work of the board. We also made a decision to appoint 2 substitute members so that we can ensure that we're always quorate. So we've got 2 very well qualified substitute members. It's very difficult choosing between those 3 people, but very happy to say that Val was chosen. And finally, I want to just say that our long-time Democratic Services Officer, Rob Sanderson, has now retired, as you heard the chairman announce, and he has done an outstanding job in supporting the work of the board. So he will be missed, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has, and I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. There's an opportunity now for Council to debate Councillor King's report. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I think you're all content to have received that report. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before we move to item 8, I have accepted the following report: political groups in accordance with the political balance rules, as a late report on the following grounds. The reasons for lateness was that Councillor Crawford only last week left the Labour group to join the independent group, which means proportionality needed to be reviewed. The reason for the urgency is to enable the council to approve the allocations of seats and substitutes on committees in accordance with political balance rules. I would like to move that motion and ask my Vice Chairman, Councillor Liz Every, if she would be pleased to second it.
Very happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Every. I therefore move that the allocations of seats and substitutes on the committees to political groups in accordance with the political balance rules as set out in the report which was circulated to members and published on the council's website be approved. I've seen one hand raised. Councillor Hickford.
Thank you, Chairman. We, the Conservative Group, have one vacancy on the substitutes of the Planning Committee, and we would like to add Jan Finch there, please, if we can, at this moment in time.
I'm sure that will be noted.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't see any other raised hands. No. So, if there's general consensus in support of the recommendation, so if you disagree with that, could you please raise your hand now? I take that as accepted and agreed. Okay, so we now move to item 8, which are motions under Council Procedure Rule 10. 3 motions have been submitted. The first motion has been submitted by Councillor Manning, and I ask Councillor Manning to move and speak to his motion as set out on page 3 of the Council's agenda. Councillor Manning.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I think a lot of the things we do as councillors follow a fairly classic pattern of identifying a problem, setting a strategy, and then developing a solution for that problem. And I was very pleased a few years ago when, having for years identified a problem of pressure on parking in Cambridge City, we did exactly that. We identified a problem, we set a parking strategy, we commissioned a report in 2017 on how to look at these things, and we set a strategy and a solution, which was to gradually and in consultation with residents set parking zones across Cambridge where residents wanted them and where there was sufficient need. So it was with a huge amount of regret and frustration, where lots of work had gone in, that the Conservative group on the then Highways and Infrastructure Committee decided to block all schemes. I obviously disagreed with that decision, but I understood they gave reasons for doing that. And in bringing this motion forward, I want to make clear that things have changed, and many of those reasons now, I believe, can be reconsidered. I think often we talk in politics about U-turns when groups change their mind, and if the Conservative group are willing to change their mind and accept this motion, or as the motion asks you to ask the committee to reconsider, it wouldn't be a U-turn because the facts on the ground have changed, as my motion makes clear. Fundamentally, this motion is about giving residents choice over what happens directly to their lives. It's not high politics, residents' parking zones, but it is incredibly important to the lives and well-being of individual residents. And as a party and a group of Conservatives, I think I've always thought that choice was particularly important to you all. So I'm hoping that you will reconsider your decision, or at least ask the committee to reconsider their decision and give residents that choice. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. Do you have a seconder for your motion?
Yes, Councillor Braddon will be seconding.
Sorry, Councillor Braddon.
Hello, thank you.
Councillor Braddon.
Yes, I will be seconding the motion, and I would like to speak now if that's acceptable.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So, as Councillor Manning has noted in his report, in his motion, many GCP projects are indeed progressing. The Tism Trail Bridge was put in place overnight on the 7th and 8th of November. The new jetty and path are due to open in early 2021, and the whole route is due to open in autumn 2021. This will massively improve connectivity and encourage active transport from villages northeast of the city into the city. Meantime, we know that the consultation for Waterbeach to Cambridge public transport and active transport options closed yesterday. This envisages a new segregated route that originally was due to integrate with the GCP's Waterbeach Greenway and the Tism Trail projects, the principle of which was widely welcomed. However, the recent requirement by the Mayor that any route should be compatible with the proposed CAM network is a very different kettle of fish for residents. This addition means that their home and allotments have been put under the threat of demolition or being tarmacked over, as the current areas of search for the CAM envisage a much wider transport link carrying much faster vehicles going purely from A to B, with no stops serving the villages through which it passes. If the requirement to incorporate the CAM network has caused any delay, that delay can be firmly placed at the Mayor's door, not at the GCP's. It's disappointing when so much work has been done on this resident parking scheme in Cambridge and residents have been surveyed for this project to be shelved in the way it has. And I endorse Councillor Manning's request to review the decision made in March this year to suspend the project. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. We haven't been given any notice of any amendments to this motion, so therefore the opportunity now exists for the council to debate it. I've had indications of 2 speakers, so I'll move into them. Councillor Amanda Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Can you all hear me okay?
You can. I can, anyway.
Great. Thank you. I wish to speak particularly about residents parking as the local member in the Queen Edith's area to give you some examples of why the delay is causing significant problems to quality of life. Queen Edith includes the Hills Road and Cherry Hinton area, basically. I suspect that a lot of you have visited. If we were in the council chamber, I'd probably ask you to put your hands up if you'd visited for certain areas in Queen Edith, but I suspect that it would perhaps bamboozle you, Mr. Chairman, so I'll avoid that for the time being. But it includes schools, 2 large 6th form colleges which attract people from all over the county, Homerton College, we have a leisure centre, and we also have Adam Brooks Hospital and the biomedical campus. So we've got huge numbers of people coming into the area every day. I dare say many of you have visited the area, perhaps coming by car. Now, we're lucky that we live in a good area, you know, an area with all these wonderful facilities and health facilities when we need them. But the downside is that everybody else comes here too. We've got students, hospital staff, patients, visitors, and some tourists as well. And these parking pressures are exacerbated by the amount of development in the area with increasing building work. This leads to 2 problems for residents, which is probably the same in other areas of Cambridge, but particularly so here. Just to give you the examples, there's lack of capacity for people to park their own cars. That's particularly hard for people with young children, people with health issues, people who need medical visitors to come and see them. In some areas, the parking pressure has led to a lot of antisocial behaviour. I'm thinking particularly of the Red Cross Lane area, bang next to Adam Brooks, where residents are frequently harassed, their own vehicles are damaged, visitors to the hospital actually park in private drives and block the roads. So it's causing a significant problem. Those people would like to have a residents parking scheme to try to preserve their local environment. Then again, there's people who don't have any parking where they live in flats and are wanting to be able to park locally. Now, when the council planned its series of residents parking schemes funded by the Greater Cambridge Partnership back in 2017, we created 7 zones that might be consulted on, which were either wholly or partly in Queen Edith's. Out of those 7 zones, to date, only 2 of them actually have parking schemes, and one of those predated the council surveys. We were promised that the next parking surveys on the list would be for the remaining Queen Edith zones, bearing in mind the amount of development that we're seeing on the biomedical campus. So that was back in 2018. We waited and waited, and then in 2019, as Councillor Manning has described, the entire programme was put on hold, pending the creation of more park and ride spaces. My people are still waiting for action. So it's actually 2 years overdue already. I'm constantly being asked by residents when they'll get the chance to express their support for a parking scheme. And what they're saying to me is that it's unfair that some residents have the option of a residence parking scheme, but they haven't even been given the opportunity to say whether they want one or not. Meanwhile, quality of life, antisocial behaviour and problems continue. We've got more building work coming with 2 large development sites with 450 dwellings. This is in the part of the ward that's near Addenbrooks. Also, the number of staff on the biomedical campus is set to increase possibly 7-fold to what it was a few years ago. We're looking at about 25,000 jobs by 2030 in the next 10 years. We've got Addenbrooks as the regional trauma centre with a maternity hospital, AstraZeneca, Packworth, and a 2 children's hospital coming. We need to get the parking sorted out before we get all these extra visitors for the sake of the quality of the life, safety and amenity. So please urge the council to stop the delay and continue with the schemes, with the consultations on the schemes which were promised to residents.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, to be absolutely clear, I and my Labour colleagues fully support residence parking schemes. We've all been involved in consultations with residents in our various parking zones over the last few years, and some have gone through very successfully. In my local area, I have the Coleridge West scheme, very popular, but one downside of that is that it's caused displacement into the other 3 zones I have in my division. And one zone in particular, Romsey West, I and colleagues and residents in Romsey West were hugely disappointed when the decision was made at the highways meeting back in March of this year to put the development of new residence parking schemes on pause. It was particularly disappointing because we had gone through a long process of having an informal consultation, and the majority of residents had voted to go to the next stage of having a formal consultation. And we were waiting to implement the formal consultation when the decision was made to pause. And well, that I remember, and it's documented, the decision was made to pause for 12 months. And also there has been a commitment to conduct a review of existing residence parking schemes. And it's, to my understanding, that review is still scheduled to take place. And there's going to be a discussion at the Highways and Transport meeting in March of the findings of the review, and we will have the opportunity then to put forward our desire to have a continuation of the development of residence parking schemes. So it has been minuted. It was agreed by the Highways Committee that there is going to be a review in March of 2021. So I fully support this motion, the core of this motion, because as I say, we, the Labour group, Labour councillors, fully support our residents who want residence parking schemes in the city. And colleagues have just gone through some of the details. I won't go over those about the advantages of the schemes. But one thing that worries me about this motion is right at the end where it states that Councillor Manning thinks that residence parking schemes should be reconsidered at the next meeting of the Highways and Transport Committee. Now that meeting is scheduled to take place on the 19th of January 2021. We're now 15th of December, and to my understanding, the review that has been promised, and I'm sure will take place, the review has not even had its parameters set. So I think in the current circumstances where the highways teams and the GCP teams have been working flat out to implement the COVID emergency transport measures, many of the staff being redeployed to other duties, I just believe that there isn't going to be any time to have a review done by the next meeting of the Highways and Transport Committee. So, and I think Councillor Manning is aware of that. Well, here's
Councillor Kavanagh, you have 18 seconds.
18 seconds. Oh, quick show and tell. I got this through my box yesterday. This is the type of document that confuses residents, and I just wish it hadn't been circulated. There's a very serious looking Councillor Manning on there making promises, which I don't will have to wait until March to be.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. In the Labour group, we supported unanimously, as did the whole council, both climate emergency and environmental motions that were put forward by Councillor Count and the Conservative group. And we were very pleased to support those two motions that are really fundamental to the health of everybody in the council and the health and well-being of all the people whom we all represent. So I begin by making that point and saying thank you to Councillor Count and the Conservative group for having put forward those two very important motions. Now I come to the second point, which is that residents parking is designed not simply so that residents can have parking spots close to where they live, but that the issue really is the impact on the health and well-being of everyone in terms of pollution and congestion that is caused by the number of motor cars that do come in to Cambridge City. And the impact, when I talk about congestion and pollution and its impact, it's not only on those of us who are resident in Cambridge, but it impacts on everyone who comes into the city, whether they come from the villages or other outlying areas, or whether they come as tourists. So the health of all of us is impacted by this issue of cars coming into the city, which the residents' parking schemes are designed to alleviate the pollution and the congestion. So that's the second point. On the review that is proposed, we will support the council in every way that we can to ensure that this review can be done. We do take the point, as my colleague Councillor Kavanagh mentioned, that officers have been redeployed in consequence of COVID-19, and we understand that absolutely. And I would simply say that in a very great sense, the review of the residents' parking scheme issue is directly germane to COVID-19, because we know the measures that the council has supported in terms of possibilities of alleviating, again, congestion and pollution. And I end on this final point. We understand absolutely that people from the villages and outlying areas need to come into the city. The children and young people need to come in to go to the colleges and so forth. People need to come in to do shopping, for entertainment and so on. We absolutely understand that. And we will work with members of the council in any way we can to ensure that transport measures are introduced that are realistic, and that are doable, and that ensure that members, that residents and members, of course, from outside Cambridge can come into Cambridge without the need for them to drive into Cambridge and then to bring congestion and pollution, which impacts on them, as I've said, just as much as it does on residents. So we are supporting this motion with the caveat that Councillor Kavanagh has referred to, that we understand the exigencies and the workload of the officers in terms of the review. We will support the review in every way we can. And again, I reiterate my final point, which is that we will do whatever we can to ensure that there is decent transport that serves the villagers and the people living outside Cambridge in a very proper way, so that that residents from outside can come into Cambridge in the best way possible and leaving their cars in park and ride or at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Singer.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of examples that I wanted to add for what the consequences of this block on residents parking have been in my area. So my area has, we have had residents parking introduced just before this came in one half of the area. The other half of the area, as with Councillor Taylor's, was moving forward, but the move towards resident parking has been blocked by the block put on by this council. As a consequence of that, in several streets, we have had to put double yellow lines in instead of residents parking, because there is a huge amount of commuter parking in those streets. The extent of commuter parking has meant that rubbish lorries are not able to get down to collect the bins because they can't turn because of the antisocial parking. The intention had been to put some double yellow lines in and significant residents parking, which would have meant that we would have stopped the commuter parking, but that people from outside would have been able to come and park in some of that area at weekends to visit relatives and visit friends. They are now not able to do that because they have double yellow lines instead. So actually what has happened in that area as a consequence is more restriction on parking rather than a lighter restriction. The other event that's happened in my patch is that we have an increasing number of people who are parking in camper vans and living in them in the streets in this area. And there is nothing we can do about it because they are parking in unrestricted areas. It is extremely difficult to prove that there is somebody living in full time in a van, even though they have the van running all weekends. So they've got the engines running in these residential streets for the whole weekend. And yet we are not able to get these people moved on because there are no restrictions on parking in that area. If there were residents parking, these people would not be entitled to permits. Now, I gather that I am expecting in a moment to hear from Mark Howell to hear why the Conservatives are not likely to be changing this policy. If that is what is going to be said, please will he explain to me how we are to deal with these issues without residents parking, because this is a major problem and it's getting worse and we need to have ways of dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singer. Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. This looks like to be my great moment. I would like to thank everybody who's just spoken. It really is appreciated, and I do say it's appreciated. I will not be supporting this particular motion because what we have said is that we will wait 1 year. What you're actually doing is, by bringing this forward, is waiting 10 months. We're waiting for 2 months more. That's all we're asking everybody to do. I'm particularly interested in what was just said by Councillor Singer. I had not heard that particular information before, and I do hope that's been passed on to the various traffic and transport officers in the council. We did this with the best intentions, and since then, as we all know, we had the COVID-19. Work was allocated out to different areas, and that's the biggest thing what we've done. Work has now been allocated until March for the different teams, where to go, what to do, etc. By bringing this forward, we're now asking everybody to change their work pattern, to drop certain things which have already been planned, and now to take back on board this. All I can say to you all is please bear with us. We have now just taken on board what we say, but we ask you to wait until March, where then we can continue with the work that we do in this particular area. I do thank you for what you said. When we have taken on board what you said, but I will not be supporting this particular motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, Councillor Linda Jones.
Thank you. And I hear what Councillor Howell is saying, and I think we are deeply appreciative of the work that the Highways Department is doing to try and catch up and understand the pressures they're under. And Councillor Kavanagh has made that point already. I wanted to draw attention to something that's in this motion, which is a bit of a mixed bag really, which is this sentence: pressures made worse by the increase in home working as part of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I live in and I actually, my division is an inner part of Cambridge, where we've had residents parking in most of the area for a long time. What I've noticed over the past year and a half, or even more, in fact, before COVID really, is an increased pressure on parking. Because even before COVID, more people were beginning to work from home. What I think we need to try and think about in an imaginative way in the Transport and Highways Group in March, when you do this review, is about this issue as well. Obviously, it's complex. You know, are people going to go back en masse to work in London, to work in their offices? Are they going to use their cars to drive off there? Or are cars going to stay parked, which they are now? Because what has been happening, I think, is that in quite a lot of areas, there is either a very, very fine balance between the number of parking permits and the number of spaces, or in some areas, including one in my division, there are more residence permits, significantly more than there are parking spaces. And the combination of that, plus the visitors permits, which the council cannot control the issue of, except in total number, mean that the pressure on parking is getting more and more. Quite a lot of residents are using visitor permits, for example, for short-term builder projects and things like that. So we've got a situation of what could be a perfect storm. And I think what I would like to ask is that the Highways and Transport Committee, or the other way around, Transport and Highways Committee, uses this opportunity of review, not just to think about the schemes that aren't in place, but also to think more generally about the schemes that are in place and to try and really use its imagination to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, apologies. First of all, I will not be supporting this motion as it currently stands. I'd like to just say thank you to a couple of the suggestions which have come forward, and particularly from Linda Jones. We've got 23 schemes already in here today, but actually when you look about how many permits there are, some households have one permit, some have two, and some have three. Now that means 3 cars. So I think we have heard already that there will be a review in March, and that is, please feed all your comments in to the review team, okay, through the officers, so that they can take account, so that when we do come to review it in March, that there will be a comprehensive review. Thank you for the Labour group for supporting the way forward. Let's hope the Liberal Democrats also support the way forward and come up with some sensible suggestions as we work forward towards March. I will not be supporting this as it currently stands. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a small comment. I'd like to support what Councillor Nesting has said, because I have been battling ever since I became a councillor with overnight camping, indeed long-term camping, on Riverside at the Stourbridge Common end there. And we of course support residents' parking schemes, but I think one thing that does need to be looked at, we didn't manage to solve that problem with the residents' parking scheme because the zones are actually quite large. And certainly what I and Councillor Jones have found with 2 schemes that we were involved in, which slightly overlapped our areas, is that there can be very diverse pressures and problems in large areas, so that there would be sections of one of the zones that were very keen, enthusiastic to have residents' parking schemes. As I say, camper vans and people living in them was one problem in my area, whereas other parts of these rather large zones don't see that there's a problem. and that you often get very active people campaigning against a residence parking scheme because they don't personally see any benefit to them, and therefore depriving those who really desperately do need it because of many problems there. So I hope in this review that the size of the zones will be looked at, and perhaps a more nuanced approach, looking more closely at the areas where there are huge parking problems. They have been solved by residence parking schemes. Silverwood Close is one that I was involved in, where we had the situation where emergency vehicles couldn't get in and things like that. And that is still true in many areas in Cambridge. So we strongly support the fact that these schemes should be looked at. But also I do think in the review, we do need to look at the zones a little more closely and to be more sensitive to where the areas of real pressure and real problems are. And not just have these very large zones with great diversity and difference in the need for residence parking. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I wasn't actually intending to speak on this because I thought we were trying as best as possible to limit to 2 speakers per group. However, other groups are, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Apologies. Okay. Well, anyway, I have heard 1 or 2 things that I do think I would like to say something about. I think the rest of Councillor Manning's group has done him a bit of a disservice, really, because I think Councillor Manning tried very hard to depoliticise this issue and put forward a reasonable motion. However, not the one that I agree with, but his colleagues went on to totally politicise it, and I think perhaps he should have chosen a different seconder and different supportive speakers, because they immediately politicised it by bringing in comments about the mayor and actually. And other issues. Actually, the mayor is the one person who is promoting and putting forward a scheme that will totally put paid to these issues in the form of the CAM. And if we deliver the CAM, and I know it's a long-term project, but if we deliver the CAM, there will be really proper transport options, which will mean that people won't have to bring their cars into Cambridge City because there is a much, much more attractive alternative. And I think we should focus on that. I think Councillor Manning's motion actually cites many of the problems that there exist with residence parking problems. His motion says that many areas waiting for parking schemes nearby to implemented ones are experiencing extreme pressures. And that is the whole problem with residence parking schemes. You implement it in one area, so the parking just moves further out and you have to creep the whole time. They are a bureaucratic nightmare from hell. My view is that the public highway is the public highway, and my taxpayers in Ely and across East Cambridgeshire should not be having to fund effectively private parking for residents of Cambridge to be able to park outside their own houses. I personally disagree with parking schemes for that reason. It is the public highway, but what we have to focus on is getting better transport options so that it is more attractive not to use your car to come into Cambridge City. And I think that's what we need to focus on. And I think that is what the mayor is promoting. So I fairly obviously won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Whitehead, your hand has gone up. Councillor Whitehead, I'm not sure why, since you've already spoken, why your hand has gone up.
I want to.
Sorry, Councillor Whitehead, you're muted. Are you speaking? You're muted, Councillor Whitehead. Why?
Right, sorry, I just wanted to correct one point that Anna Bailey made, that the residence parking schemes in Cambridge are paid for by the residents. They are not, we don't get free parking, we pay quite substantially.
Colleagues, can I remind,
quite right.
Whitehead, can I remind colleagues, if you're going to come in, you come in either on a point of order, point of personal explanation, not simply come in and try to clarify something you didn't think the other person said. Please don't interrupt again. Councillor Whitehead, can you take your hand down? Councillor Bailey,
Point of personal explanation, what I was alluding to is the fact that all tax-paying residents of Cambridgeshire pay for the public highways.
Thank you. Right. As far as I'm concerned, there are no more speakers on this issue. Councillor Whitehead, your hand is still, it's gone now, that's fortunate. It's clearly there is no consensus on this one, so I'm now going to ask Democratic Services, Mrs. Rowe, to conduct an electronic vote on this.
Point of order, Chair. Do I not?
I should have given Councillor Manning. Sorry, I should have invited Councillor Manning to sum up. Apologies, Councillor Manning.
I'm beginning to think this is a thing. That's the second time I've been ignored today.
I didn't mean to ignore you.
I know, Chair. Am I okay to go ahead?
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
The councillor's coming in, put me off for a minute. Okay.
I'll just try and quickly sum up. I'd like to thank my excellent colleagues that I was very happy spoke on the motion, particularly Councillor Bradnam talking about the interaction with the Mayor and the GCP. Councillor Taylor's excellent local knowledge of the situation around Addenbrooke's, which is obviously of county and perhaps national importance, not just her local area. Councillor Kavanagh, I was wondering whether you were your plan was to talk for so long that we actually got to the next meeting of Highways and Transport by the end of your speech. But aside from that, I think perhaps one of the things that, and I'm happy to coach you on that, is outside the meeting, but perhaps the difference between the way the Liberal Democrats approach informal consultation and the way Labour councillors tend to approach informal consultation is that when we get to the stage with the officers, we actually present them with a scheme that's quite solid, accepted by residents, understood. So there isn't a massive resource impact for the officers in the same way that there is for some of the schemes that perhaps you take forward. And I'm happy to help you through it outside of the meeting and from the generosity of my heart, obviously. Councillor Scott, I think, made an excellent point about the health effects and how it affects everyone, not just residents of the city of Cambridge, but everywhere. And I thought Councillor Jones also made excellent points about the way the schemes are implemented.
Councillor Manning, can I interrupt you, please?
Sure.
Councillor Kavanagh, we're on the last speaker. You've raised your hand. If you wish to raise a point of order or personal explanation, you need to interrupt the current speaker, not just simply show your hand. All right, can I just remind all members of that? So is it your intention, Councillor Kavanagh, to raise a point of order or point of personal explanation? If it's a point of order, can you tell me what particular law or process has been broken that you feel that you need to speak?
Well, I just want to point out, I think Councillor Manning...
Sorry, Councillor Kavanagh.
What I was saying. It's entirely misunderstood.
Councillor Kavanagh, I'm going to interrupt you. Councillor Kavanagh, I'm going to interrupt you. Have you raised your hand on a point? Are you raising a point of order or a point of personal explanation? Can you start off with that, telling me which of those it is, please? Neither? In that case...
I'm not entirely clear. I just want, for historical record, and I just don't like being patronised. Thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Kavanagh. Can I ask you to mute your speaker, please? Councillor Manning, would you continue, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and wrap up, but I think Councillor Kavanagh has just demonstrated the sort of confusion that some of the Labour group demonstrate with the Constitution and with officers, actually. So thank you for that. Councillor Bates, obviously, your point is completely correct about the number of permits, but the point of the whole point of residence parking schemes is we have to tailor them to the individual area, but I completely accept that's something that needs to be reviewed. So I agree with you there. Thank you, Councillor Bailey, for recognising the way I drafted this motion. That said, I did feel that, having then said that my colleagues were politicising it, I felt you by saying that we're politicising it. I'm very happy with the points my colleagues made. And I think your substantive point, though, about the CAM, well, where we think we all disagree on the CAM is it's about if the CAM can be delivered or whether it's even possible to deliver something like the CAM. But just to finish with Councillor Howell's point, obviously I'm always very happy to give him a moment in the spotlight. But I think the where I did agree with Councillor Bailey and how it relates to Councillor Howell's point is that, yes, we've got a review coming. We do this all the time. We set some policy in motion, it sets in stone, we run it, and then we do a review after the year. What we desperately need to do as this council is be far more agile about the way we do things and far more reactive and continuously change things. Not do something, set it in stone, then say, oh, we can't do anything for another 3 months. Councillor Howell, yeah, you're right. Obviously, it's only going to be a 2 or 3 months difference. But the point is, it will put officers in a situation where they know that resource constraint is coming up. If we don't do this, we'll get to March when it's reviewed, and then we probably won't be able to get started for another several months after that. If we make this decision and give this indication now, we allow officers to plan for the resource constraints that will be needed to deliver some of the schemes. And a number of these schemes are ready to go and have local resident support because of the informal consultation that's been done. So I really would like you to reconsider. It's clear you've indicated you're not, but just one last thing. I'd just like you to, there are quite a lot of Conservative voters in the city, apparently, so I'm told. And I think they would want to see you give them the right to make a choice over their own lives and things that affect them. So if nothing else persuades you, maybe that will. Please support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. I will now move to the vote, the electronic vote on this. Mrs. Rowe, would you please conduct the electronic vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Members in favour of the motion, it should be coming up soon. Yeah, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the motion, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain and submit. And I will ask the host to confirm whether everyone has voted.
Looks like there's one more person to vote. I'm looking for 57 and I've had 56.
That's probably Councillor Shellens. So everyone would have voted and he's not here yet. So in that case, Chair, I will close the vote and ask the host to announce the result.
Thank you.
Thank you. 25 votes in favour and 31 against. Therefore, the motion is not carried.
Thank you. Before I move on, could I just ask that everybody switches off their mic? Councillor Williams, your mic is open. Could you close it, please? Thank you. Right. So the motion is lost. We will now move on to the second motion submitted by Councillor Hunt. Can I ask Councillor Hunt to move and speak to his motion as set out in pages 3 and 4 of the council agenda? Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much, Chair. Beg your pardon. The A11, not all members are fully aware of the geography of the Soham-Hadnam area. The A1123 runs from Soham to Huntingdon, and there is a little spur off this road in Hadnam, which is called the A1421, which is about 2 miles and goes from Hadnam to Witcham Toll. I was elected to represent what you would almost call the A1123 corridor in 2005. So I've got 15 years experience of dealing with residents and their issues. It's become very common over the last 10 years or so to refer to the A1123, which runs from Soham to Wycombe to Streatham to Wilburton to Hadnam to Erith to Bluntisham, St Ives and Witton. It has been very easy to call it the A14 bypass. When the A14 was a small, narrow, dual carriageway, whenever there was a breakdown or an accident, it jammed up. That's why the government have spent so much money upgrading it. And the majority of the traffic went through these villages. And I would say, of course, that we should bear in mind that this traffic comes from Felixstowe, Ipswich, through Cambridgeshire on its way to Scotland, the North, the Midlands and Wales. In addition to the villages that I've just mentioned, it is quite clear that the villages of Cottenham and Histon are also affected as people join the A1123 and then try and move off it to go somewhere else. Residents have had to put up with vehicles being smashed into, cyclists injured, houses smashed down. In one house has been hit twice, tractors have overturned with fatal consequences, and of course the pollution levels for the kids, particularly the kids who walk along these villages that have been divided in two by this road. Now, I've been the member for this area for 15 years, and we've had quite a large number of LHI bids from the parishes. We've extended the speed limits. We've got light controlled crossings in Wilburton and Hadnam. We've got crossings in Streatham. We've extended the speed limits. Speedwatch has been encouraged and has been particularly active. And we had, with the council officers' support, a scheme for signage. But all this hasn't changed. It is reduced, but it hasn't changed the fact that people are living in lovely villages that have got one big problem, and that's this busy A road which goes through it. Since the fact that I've put this motion forward, I've been contacted by all sorts of people, and they've been contacted. Some of them have been the public, some have been the press, and some have been parish councils. And with the exception of one person, they've all said, well done, delighted, well done, love your actions. So there's clearly support for this. We have an opportunity to do something, because now the A14, that 1.4 billion upgrade has been complete, and the Ely bypass is open, the A1123 can cease to be the A14 bypass. They want to give, I want to give, and I hope the council will give, the lives back to these beautiful villages. It's something which I believe we have the opportunity now, and once people experience going along the A14 or the A142, they won't voluntarily go through the top corner at Hadnam or the twists and turns in Streatham and shake places like Erith to pieces. I always, when I'm talking
15
about
seconds, Councillor Hunt.
Pardon?
15, 11, 10 seconds.
I thought as a proposer I wasn't limited. I'm
absolutely. No, sorry.
I wish to support this, and I hope that members will see that this is an important thing to do. Give back the lives to the people who live in these villages, and let them.
Councillor Hunt, can you wind up, please?
Okay, I would like you to support this motion, which will change the lives of thousands of people and will be an inspiration to other areas to perhaps follow suit.
Councillor Hunt, do you have a seconder for your motion?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Councillor Criswell, I'd like to second it, Chairman, and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Criswell. Colleagues, we've been given notice of an amendment to Councillor Hunt's motion. I find this a difficult thing. I want to explain to you that the amendment, as proposed by Councillor Wilson, has been discussed considerably over the last 24 hours or more. I personally found it very difficult because in reading a very complicated amendment, I found it difficult to see how this did not in itself appear not to negate the original motion. And I know that others, Councillor Count, for instance, during the briefing that we had yesterday prior to the council, there was considerable concern being expressed by him as to the fact that the amendment negated the original motion, which of course is not permitted. However, the monitoring officer, together with the Democratic Services Manager, looked at the original amendment, and on advice, that amendment has been altered so that it does not negate, in their opinion, does not now negate the original motion. I was asked to make a decision. I've spoken to the monitoring officer myself this morning because I was concerned. However, on advice of the monitoring officer, I am going to allow the amendment to be put, and you have that, you should have that in front of you. However, before I move to ask Councillor Wilson to introduce his amendment, as I say, I am very concerned. I'm going to ask Councillor Liz Every, as Chairman of the Constitution and Ethics, to ask her committee to look carefully at the Constitution to ensure that this sort of issue, where an apparent negation of a motion is allowed up until the deadline and then can be subsequently changed to the deadline to become an appropriate amendment, because I think it does cause an awful lot of concern and confusion. So I hope Councillor Lever.
Yes, Chair. Of course, we'll discuss that at the next committee meeting.
Thank you, because I think we need to remove this confusion. So, as I say, with some degree of reluctance, I'm going to allow the amendment, and I will now invite Councillor Graham Wilson to put his amendment to Council. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. And just to confirm that I do have a seconder in Tom Sanderson. So firstly, thank you for taking this amendment. I think it complements rather than trying to significantly change Councillor Hunt's proposal. Firstly, I must correct an error in the motion. In the second line of the second paragraph, I refer to Arlington. Now, those that know the A1198 will know that it goes through Arrington, nowhere near Arlington. Councillor Hunt raises concerns about a particular A road that affects his and some other divisions. But this is just one such road in Cambridgeshire, and there are many others where villages are badly affected by traffic on A roads. The amendment gives examples of similar roads and includes the busy A1198, which runs through my division and cuts the old town of Gonmanchester from the big new housing development at Roman's Edge. And on that road is very similar to the road that Councillor Hunt refers to, with a lot of heavy traffic and speeding traffic. In many of the locations I've given, lower speed limits have been introduced, light controlled crossings have been built, and speed watch and HGV watch groups have been set up. But this is not enough. And changing the classification of an A road to a B road does not solve the underlying safety issues. In most cases, other measures such as nighttime HGV restrictions, average speed checks, and changes to road layouts to slow traffic and improved safety for pedestrians have not yet been tried. Now, I agree that some schemes have been pushed through LHI bids, but there are still many, many other places where we still need to try and improve the situation for pedestrians and road users. So for these reasons, I propose that we widen out the resolution to not just pursue the reclassification of the A1123 and the A1421 from an A to B class, but also to work with parish councils and residents which suffer similar issues to those Councillor Hunt has described, to establish what measures could be used to reduce the impact of high traffic levels, especially HGVs, and then discuss with parishes what road safety measures are needed. So not just reclassifying roads from A to B, and then bring back a paper to Highways and Transport Committee on what options are likely to be most effective, which are supported by local villages, and what the cost implications would be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Can you just remind me, who is your seconder?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Yeah,
sorry, you
happy to
two
second,
people
Chairman.
talking then. Sorry, can you not talk crossly? Councillor Sanderson. Yeah, Councillor
Mr.
Sanderson.
Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to second the motion, Chairman.
Right. Do you wish to speak now, or are you reserving your right to speak?
I will reserve my right to speak later if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. I have Councillor Steve Count. Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chairman. In addressing this amendment, I mainly wish to speak to the nature of how this amendment has come before the Council, which you have already alluded to. As you're aware from the original motion from Councillor Hunt, this was a very clear, precise and simple motion. Mainly a stretch of road, the A1123 that runs east-west, now has a new A14 built nearby. That new road should take the heavy lifting, so to speak, off the A1123. Therefore, it was appropriate we considered changing that A road to a B road, improving the lives of the residents along that road. Simple, clear. Instruct officers to pursue the changing of an A road to a B road. No complications, no additional requests. As a meerkat may say, Simples. The Liberal Democrats then put forward the amendment, which involved different roads, parish councils, a highways committee, a plethora of new wording, and struck out wording. The new additional recommendations actually capture what is largely on the forward agenda plan for the Highways Committee in April, and therefore the additional words are mainly superfluous and unnecessary. But what I want to draw particular attention to is the simple recommendation from Councillor Hunt, put forward the change from an A road to a B road, which was originally struck out as part of the amendment. That original attempt at an amendment can only therefore be described as a wrecking motion, that whilst it appears to be for the benefit of our residents, it was politically motivated and negated the original motion. This negation was confirmed by Democratic Services in their email regarding the new proposed additional wording stating, and I quote, "in order to ensure that the motion is not negated." And that new wording was put forward 8 hours after the constitutional deadline. It is not acceptable to me or this group that a motion that negates an original motion is allowed to be reworded and squeezed into shape in order to be aired and debated 8 hours after the deadline has passed. Politically, but particularly when the political motivation has now been clearly established. I appreciate that you have asked the Constitution and Ethics Committee to consider that point. In the intervening period, there is the finely balanced decision of whether to debate this amendment today, which you have allowed. But the appropriate action, therefore, in my opinion, is to let this council decide. This council is the ultimate decision maker, and they should decide in the only way possible, which is by way of a vote. So this is an unacceptable and inappropriate way to handle the debate. And I can assure you, Chairman, that feelings run deep on this matter. I therefore formally ask that the votes be put and no further debate on this amendment be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move on to the next speaker, my recollection of how we should proceed with this, because what you're effectively asking me to do, Councillor Kent, is to draw the debate to a close and to take the vote. To do this properly, I'm trying to remember the word, I think you should now, you should be proposing that the question be now put, and you would need a seconder clearly for that. If that is your intention, you need to make that plain to me now. I will then have to put that to council. If that is agreed, then we will now put the question. That is my understanding is the proper procedure. So simply asking me during your thing to take the vote, I cannot do that because I've got 1 or 2 people wishing to speak. And but while I'm going to take this opportunity as well, before I move on and ask you to make that formal proposal, I want to remind Councillor Hunt, as the original proposer of the original motion, that he has the right to the right of reply at the end of the debate. If we continue with the debate on the amendment, he's shown that he wishes to speak. If he wishes to speak, he can only speak once. So Councillor Hunt, if you wish to take your hand down, I will come back to you anyway. Maybe need reminding, and invite you as the proposer of original motion to exercise your right to reply, but you cannot speak twice in it. Okay, Councillor Kent, do you wish to make that a formal proposal? Please advise me that the question be now put. Councillor Kent, I've lost you and I've lost several people. I don't know if we're having a communications problem here. Could somebody just acknowledge that they can hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
We can hear you, Connie. Yes, we can. And we've lost Steve as well.
Chairman, there is a Microsoft scan going on at the moment. SCN for not scam. And I think that might be affecting some people.
Oh, I wonder who's doing that then. Okay. So, Councillor Kent, did you hear what I said? are you able to hear me, Councillor Count?
It looked like he froze. He may have been cut out and maybe trying to get back in.
Appreciate that, Councillor Smith. Do appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't know, but
That's all right. Thank you.
He said he's trying to get back in.
We will wait. I'm going to get, because we are in a virtual meeting, we do have these technical problems. I'm going to give Councillor Count the opportunity to come back in, and hopefully he heard my comments and request to him. So please bear with us, colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, it's Graham Wilson. Whilst we're waiting for Councillor Count, presumably I'll get an opportunity to respond to the amendment before Councillor Hunt sums up.
No, you don't. No, unfortunately, Councillor Wilson, well, I say unfortunately, it's just to be the rules. The rules of debate on an amendment are that such that you, as a proposer of an amendment, you introduce the amendment, which you have done so. Your seconder is reserved the right to speak to it. You do not have the right to sum up or reply at the end of it. That falls to the proposer of the original motion. So I think one or two of our members do need to read up on their constitution.
Apologies for that. So does Councillor Sanderson get the opportunity to sum up as the seconder before the vote is put?
Not if Councillor Count or any other member rises on and proposes that the question be now put, I have to put that, and he has a set, and provided they have a seconder for that, I have to put that to full council. If full council accepts that and supports that proposal, then that brings the debate to an end on the amendment, and we move to the vote on the amendment.
Surely that, given that Councillor Sanderson had reserved his right to speak, he still gets to speak. He reserved his right before.
I'm afraid, unless the monitoring officer advises him otherwise, one motion overtakes the other. That motion would be, that proposal would be to the question I put. That's the end of it. The question is now put, but council doesn't have to agree to that proposal. But if it does agree to it, then that brings that.
Could I make a point of order, please?
What is the point of order, Councillor Manning?
So it's under procedure rule 2.8 from the rules of procedure of the Constitution, which is to consider motions. I'm wondering that as Councillor Count is clearly having an issue connecting, if we can just simply move on to the next speaker, and then as soon as Councillor Count comes back in, he can then speak, because at the moment it's probably a bit. Well,
clearly this is a dilemma that I don't suppose many people have had to be confronted with. So I'm going to move to
point of order. Chairman.
Oh, Councillor Bailey, can you just wait? Please, people don't interrupt me at the moment. Can I ask Mrs. Rowe, please, can you tell me what the situation is with regards to Councillor Count coming in?
Councillor Count informed members that his internet was a bit unreliable, and I'm afraid there is nothing in democratic services that we can do if it's his own.
He's still not come. No. He has still not come in. Okay.
Councillor Hickford.
Therefore, Councillor Count cannot, at this stage, put in. Councillor Bailey, you wish to rise on a point of order?
I do. Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry to interrupt, but under Council Rules of Procedure 4, I do believe that Councillor Count already made his request that the question be put in his statement.
Not in
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. But as I explained to him, that is not the proper process. To say that he would like it during his speech is not the proper process. My understanding of the Constitution requires a member of the council to, again, by interrupting, and they can do that, to say that they propose that the question be put, and they have to demonstrate a seconder. They can't simply say that during their speech they want to do that. But I'll look to Fiona McMillan.
Yes, sorry, Chairman, I was trying to come in. So it's called a closure motion. A member may move it without comment at the end of the speech of another member, which I think is the point you were trying to make, as opposed to their own speech. And if a motion that the question be now put is seconded, which it needs to happen, and the chairman thinks the item has been sufficiently discussed, and that's for you to take a view on, he will put the procedural motion to the vote. And if passed, he will give the mover of the original motion a right of reply before putting his or her motion to the vote.
Can I just pick up on that, on a point of order, that actually, if you haven't even allowed the seconder to speak, it's difficult to see how that can have been sufficiently discussed, Chair.
That will be my decision, clearly. Thank you for your advice, Councillor Nsinga. So, in the absence of Councillor Count, I'm going to allow the original speakers to put their points forward, those who originally showed. But in the meantime, could I just remind a number of councillors have still got their mics on. It's in our interest that we don't get any background noises. So people like Councillor Connor, Councillor Criswell, Councillor Bill Hunt, they're all going off swiftly. You're spotting it. Good. It just avoids any of the background noise. And don't forget that when we're talking about points of order, points of personal explanation, you need to interrupt the present speaker, even if it's me. Okay? Otherwise, don't just simply put your hand up. So I'm going to allow Councillor Bradnam to come in at this point. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So just to remind us what we were talking about was Councillor Hunt's suggestion that a particular road in his division should be changed from an A road to a B road classification. So as Councillor Wilson suggests, communities all over this county are dealing with heavy lorries on roads not designed or approved for them. The B1047 in my division of Waterbeach is a case in point. It offers a totally unsuitable, but it offers an alternative link between the A10 and the A14, avoiding the congested A10-A14 junction. But the whole route has an 18-ton, 2-axle weight restriction, but it's regularly used by bigger and heavier lorries. I have raised the matter of enforcement with the relevant police team, who advised me that enforcement is impractical because of staff resources, but also because they cannot be sure that the lorry did not have a legitimate delivery to make in the villages. What I'm pointing out, why I'm going into this detail, is because the amendment rightly highlights the problems that we all have in our divisions, rather than seeking special treatment for one road in Councillor Hunt's division. Not that I don't sympathise with him. What we really need is the resources to enforce the weight limits that are already applied to our roads and the transport plans that are applied to developments to avoid HGVs going through our villages. So I wholeheartedly support Councillor Wilson's motion, amendment. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Hickford.
Thank you, Chair. It was very unfortunate we lost Councillor Count when we did. So I was looking to, as he was speaking, second what he was doing. I would now like to formally put forward the motion that the question now be put, and would ask for a seconder, please, Chairman.
Do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Councillor Bailey. Right. I want to clarify with Fiona McMillan. At this stage, I need to put that question to council, but it is within my gift, as I understand it, before that question is put, to allow seconder, for instance, to speak, and the proposer of the original motion, if he wishes to come in and exercise his right to reply. Is that right, before I put that motion to council?
Well, you just have to decide whether you feel it's been sufficiently discussed. If you feel that you need to hear from other people before it's been sufficiently discussed, then that's in your gift to do so.
Yeah, but which comes first? Do I put the motion to the question now be put to go first, or can I allow those other people to speak first?
No, you would need to allow the other people to speak first.
Okay, in that case, I believe that I'm not going to take any other speakers other than initially Councillor Sanderson as the seconder, and then go to Councillor Hunt to exercise his right of reply, and then I intend to put the motion that the question now be put to council. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just really have a brief comment about average speed checks on this road, because I don't believe that's actually on the Highways Committee agenda. Somebody perhaps later after the meeting, perhaps be useful if they could just clarify if that will now take place as part of the plans for this road, as Councillor Hunt has outlined.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Hunt, as the mover of the original motion, you can now exercise your right to reply. Do you wish to do so?
Yes, I do, Chair. And thank you very much for navigating through what is obviously a tricky water. I think it had been made by Councillor Count, but bearing in mind the fact that he was cut off, I think it is clear that the action point in this motion was a simple one: to reclassify the A1123 and the A141 from
Lovely.
A to B. It
Thank
is
you very much.
clear
Bye.
that it is clear that the first amendment that the Liberal Democrats put down was to delete that item. So as for clarity, it is quite clear the Liberal Democrats wanted not to do that. And I would also like to bring a couple of items from officers' briefing. The officers describe an A road as a major road, large-scale transport links between urban areas. Clearly, the A1123 is not that. It clearly goes into the B section, which is connect lesser areas and connect A roads to smaller roads. That's what it is. There is also in the officers' briefing a clear instruction of where reclassification can be caused. And that is when there is a bypass, when a bypass has been constructed. Well, what on earth is the A14 and what on earth is the thing called the Ely Southern Bypass if they're not bypasses? Of course they are. So that's why this is a unique case. And it also says there should be could be a change of classification if there's a change in the traffic management system. Well, what on earth is this if that isn't that? And I really would ask members to get behind. We can use this motion in the future if it is applicable. I believe every case is unique, but there may be lessons and benefits to be learned from this. So please think about the residents and the children and the people who are sucking in fumes that live in these villages, and I name them again: Soham, Wickham, Streatham, Wilburton, Hadnam, Erith, Bluntisham, St Ives and Huntingdon, and also of course, the spur that goes up to Witcham Toll. And we have also the benefit of the people of Histon and Cottenham to consider, because obviously some people will get off there. So I beg for your support to this motion, and I hope you will give no truck to the amendment, which I feel is only a wrecking thing. It is politically motivated, and clearly the people who are motivated and trying to stop it are people who don't care about the residents who live in Cambridgeshire and whose lives could improve dramatically. Thank you.
Chairman, can I make a point of personal explanation, please? The people who put this amendment definitely do care about the people of Cambridgeshire, and they care about all the residents of Cambridgeshire, not just the people who live along the particular roads that Councillor Hunt refers to. This was not intended to be a wrecking amendment. This was intended to be an amendment which would ensure that other locations were properly considered. And if Councillor Hunt refers to the briefing note, he would also see that the penultimate paragraph indicates that the cost to this council could be at least £250,000.
Councillor Wilson, that's not part of a personal explanation. Thank you. Let's just repeat part of the debate. Thank you. Can I just remind, it is a bit frustrating seeing you as chairman trying to coordinate all this. Quite enjoyable, but so it's not a complaint. But can I just remind people to keep their mics off? Some of them are going off now, but we've had Councillor Connor's mic, and during Councillor Hunt's right of reply in the early stages, we were getting interruptions from other people's mics. So could you please look for that little red symbol on your screen which shows that your mic is muted. Thank you. And could I also point out to Councillor Giles, I did say I wasn't going to take any more speakers, Councillor Giles. Could you take your blue hand out, please?
No, Chairman, I did have my blue hand up before.
I know, Councillor Giles, you had it up, but that was before I decided that I was going to invite only the seconder and Councillor Hunt to speak. In other words, I was curtailing the debate.
Okay, you're the boss.
And so now we have got a proposal that the question now be put. That was proposed by Councillor Hickford and Councillor Bailey. So I'm now going to ask Mrs. Rowe to put the vote. You're voting on whether the question should now be put. This is regards to the amendment. Mr. Rowe, over.
Thank you, Chair. Members in favour of the, sorry, the screen will, I'll just wait for it to come up. Members in favour of the motion, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the motion, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain.
Michelle, can I just clarify? I thought that what we're doing is that the question be now put.
Yeah, that is a motion, the closure motion.
That's the proposal,
So you're voting on that motion. Yeah.
That's what you're voting on.
Can the host please confirm that everyone has voted?
So
Dan?
There's still a couple more to come. 2 more.
Can you tell us, are you able to tell us who they are? Are they still with us?
1 more, so 1 person who hasn't voted. I'm expecting 57 and I've got 56.
Chair, would you like me to close the vote?
I think so, because it could be that it's somebody who cannot come in at this stage. So could
We'll
I
now close the vote and the host will announce the result.
Dan?
So the results of the vote are 32 votes in favour, 15 against and 9 abstentions. Therefore, the motion is carried.
Right, the motion is carried. Therefore, the question will now be put on the amendment. I will now move to the vote on the amendment. Hope everybody understands that. So, Mrs. Rowe, could you now conduct the vote on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry to interrupt, Chairman. It's me, point of order. Because I missed some of that, and my sincere apologies. I got problems with the IT. I just want to understand if we're now on the amendment. So if we're against the amendment, we vote against. We're that on that question.
The vote is now on Councillor Wilson's amendment.
So if we're against the amendment,
that's up to you. That's up to you. That's up to you how you vote. Yeah.
Chairman, members in favour of the amendment, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the amendment, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain and submit. Can the host please confirm that everyone has voted and then close the vote?
2 more to vote. I've had 55 so far. Still 55.
Those of you who have not voted, could you please look at your screen and vote?
Chairman, would you like us to close the vote?
If we're not able to identify who the 2 are that haven't voted, if we can't identify them, then we have to move on. So yes, could we please have the results of the vote so far? Thank you.
So the results of the vote are as follows: 17 in favour, 32 against and 7 abstentions. Therefore, the amendment is lost.
Right, the amendment is lost. Thank you. We will now move to the substantial motion, which was proposed by Councillor Hunt and seconded by Councillor Criswell. So we will now open the debate on that. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm wearing my Alice in Wonderland earrings today, as I usually do when I'm attending a council meeting at which something even more absurd than usual is about to be decided. They're particularly apt today because it's in Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland that the Queen of Hearts makes her famously preposterous demand, sentence first, verdict afterwards. And that's where this motion is today, really. It puts forward an answer to a problem that it hasn't properly considered. It completely ignores the council's policy on how to deal with such matters. And it jumps feet first into an unproven conclusion with no consideration of its effect on other road users. Downgrading the A1123 will cost the council some £250,000 a year and in lost maintenance funding, and that's in the officers' briefing that they gave to us. Councillor Hunt has already referred to this. But the officers also tell us it's highly unlikely to reduce either the cost of maintaining the road or the amount of traffic on it. To take just two examples, the B1381 through Sutton and the B1050 through Willingham, both of which intersect the A1123, also experience unacceptable volumes of HCV traffic despite their classification as B roads. The amendment that has just been rejected would at least have taken a wider view of the issue, because it is an issue, a significant issue, not just for Councillor Hunt and the residents he represents, but also for the residents of Sutton, Willingham, Godmanchester, Cottenham, and many other towns and villages who have been campaigning for years against this blight on their communities, a blight this council has ignored for far too long and is likely to continue to ignore so long as it remains under the present administration. This motion comes to us with no evidence, no facts, no reasoned arguments, and we need to wait to see the evidence to justify what is being proposed. We need to understand the strategic role of the road, the general level of traffic and proportion of goods vehicles it carries, wider traffic management and routing strategies in the vicinity, and the standard and classification of other nearby roads. So we will wait to see the technical evaluation and to hear whether this proposal complies with government guidance. We will await a full financial analysis, a study of the impact on other parts of the road network, and at that point, and only at that point, will we be able to take a considered view on whether this £250,000 proposal can be justified, as it must be, to government ministers.
Have you finished, Councillor Dupre?
I have, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Right, thank you very much. Yeah, I always want to wish I was the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland and just say off with their heads. But anyway, moving on, I've got Councillor Bradnam. You've just, yeah, your hand's just come up. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to reiterate the point that Councillor Dupre has made about the extra costs that will fall to this council. In my own, as a result of this downgrading, a loss of £250,000 per annum is no small amount. And as the officer notes refer, maintenance requirements for the road are unlikely to change, but also the point that they make later on, which says that the assessment works that will be required will also take a significant amount of time and resource to fulfill. In my own division, we were slightly startled years ago when the A10 was detrunked and became an A road, and the costs of repair have since fallen to the county council in a rather parallel way. And that has been an enormous cost to the council. So for the same reasons that Councillor Dupre is advocating not supporting this motion or not agreeing with it, I would endorse that view. I think it's a short-sighted view and doesn't take account of the costs that will fall to us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradnam. I'm seeing no more speakers, so I'm going to invite as well as the seconder to Councillor Giles. Your hand has just come up.
I know it has, Chairman, and I've been pinging the blooming button. And can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
I can indeed.
About a minute and a half now, but anyway,
Giles, over to you.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm familiar with the problems of bypasses. Believe me, whenever the A1 in Eton-Soken blocks up, or at Paxton, yeah, everything's gridlocked. However, I'm not comfortable with this, the cost of doing this project when we haven't had recent results about the volume of traffic. It's only just very, very recently that the A14 has opened. And there's no doubt about it, the volume of traffic that I see going on that road has increased enormously. Now, I'm not going to say what's going to happen if the new A14 becomes gridlocked, but I think the chances of it being gridlocked are way, way less than the old A14 used to be. There was always problems with that. I haven't heard of any problems on the new A14, therefore the traffic would not be using the villages as a bypass. And I think that we should see what the effect of the reopening of the A14 and possibly, who knows, one day the A428 upgrade has on the villages. Because interestingly, the motion that was defeated mentioned Arrington and the southern part between Royston and Huntingdon, which of course was the old Great North Road, the A10 as it used to be many years ago. Well, that's not very busy at all now, and I have a funny feeling that that's how the road that the proposer refers to will become in the next year or two, because we won't have those huge, great HGVs rumbling across there because the A14 is blocked, because I don't think that the A14 will get blocked. So I will not be supporting it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask for a recorded vote, please, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Can I be reminded, do we, how many, oh, well, we can do a recorded vote anyway, don't we, Mrs. Rowe?
Chairman, we published the results of the votes, but if you want a recorded vote that's actually recorded in the minutes, then I think from memory it's about 14 members need to request it.
13 to 14, that's what I was checking. All right, we've had a request from Councillor Bailey for a recorded vote. Well, for those of you who are wishing to speak and not support the recorded vote, could I just get you to take your hands down just now, and we can sort of count those to see how many people support the request for a recorded vote. So recorded vote, I think we're going to reach that number, aren't we, Michelle? It looks
like it, Chairman, yes.
Okay, so we're going to have a recorded vote. Right, now I'll go back to, I'm trying to think who was after Councillor Bailey, originally wanting to speak. Those of you down to speak? Right, Councillor Hunt, White, you've still got your hand up, but I'll be coming to you at the end anyway. But can I take Councillor Susan van der Ven?
Chair, I beg it. I was waiting and I didn't know in what order, so I'll put my hand down on the assumption I will be asked to speak at the end.
You will be asked to speak after Councillor Criswell. Yes.
Thank you.
You have the opportunity. Councillor van der Ven.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I think Councillor Giles just referred to the A1198 toward Royston as being far less of a problem and not seeing much traffic at all. I may have misheard you, Councillor Giles, but so I would like to clarify that this is probably the biggest issue for some of the parishes I represent at Bassingbourn, Cumneesworth. They would be horrified to hear the road described that way. And it is, I was hoping with Councillor Wilson's speech earlier on the amendment that we could have had a wider discussion, because it is a horrendously problematic stretch, and it leads to the A1 and point south. I just wanted to clarify that on behalf of my parishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor van der Ven. Councillor Singer.
Thank you very much. Given some of the comments so far, I just wanted to make it absolutely clear that we are not against the idea of downgrading the A1123. We have never been against the idea of downgrading the 1123. We do, however, believe that it is important that any decision to do that should be taken with full information on what the other options might be that would be less costly to the council and the impact on surrounding roads. That does not mean that we are against the downgrading of that road. And I just wanted to make that absolutely clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zinger. Councillor Counts.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope my internet does actually manage to hold up for some of the I've got to say. Although I don't have much to say, just a couple of points. The first one I'd like to say is we heard earlier on about the Alice in Wonderland comments, and I think they're fairly apt, as the logic from them disappeared down the almost bottomless hole that is in Alice in Wonderland, that forms the tenuous link between reality and a world make-believe, just as those comments were. But a lot of mention has been made of the lost revenue to the council that comes about from a downgrade from an A road to a B road. And I understand that because the finances of this council have been the subject of my attention and many councils for many years. And it is always a difficult decision how to balance these things. But what we don't do is say we put money ahead of residents. What we try and do is take balanced decisions on behalf of serving our residents to the best of our ability. And we always have to make decisions, make calls on that money. Which are we going to prioritise in this instance? There's only a limited pot, the resident, or improving a service, or in fact, in this case, downgrading an A road to a B road. Now, I can understand why some people may not support this, message straight away. But that may well largely be driven by some of them don't really know or understand this road very well, or even the nature of the impact of the A14, the new A14, and the Ely bypass that we successfully built a few years ago. This road is largely a winding single carriageway that weaves its way through picturesque country villages, and the only thing that's wrong with those country villages when you go along them is when you look at them, their buildings are discoloured from decades of polluting vehicles, often standing idly in queues. And I want people to understand that we have a chance here to start to do something about that, and the downgrade of a road from an A to a B road is the first step in really making it clear that this is no longer a road described by officers as a major connection between urban areas for vehicles and freight, which is an A road. And anybody that doesn't know this road as well as I do, and some members do, if you drive on it, it would not be a difficult decision. Get in your vehicles, have a look at this road, and you will know that if there is an alternative available, this does not fit the classification of an A road. Now, I know that there are other roads and parishes been mentioned earlier on, and it was a shame that we had to get rid of that deliberate attempt to mess up this motion in that way, because actually we all support the aims of our parishes and our residents to improve their lives in that way. However, I must point out again that we are covering that through the work which is already on the forward agenda for the Highways Committee in April. And so we'll be doing a lot of those things that are requested anyway. And we will take every opportunity when it comes to actually improve lives. And it's a shame that people don't see this opportunity for what it is. The new A14 runs the same direction and same way, east-west, that this road largely does. And therefore, if we can divert the larger vehicles onto that, make it more appropriate use of it, it's very clear that the benefits will be felt on this section of road. Just in closing, I find it incredible when I hear members say, to make it absolutely clear, I'm all for this, but then I'm going to vote against it. The public aren't stupid. The public can see this recording. The public can read the actual minuted recorded votes of those individuals. So if you say you are for the downgrading of an A road to a B road in this case, then you have one option, you vote for it. And if you vote against it, then the public and I and the Conservative group know that actually you really were against it after all. So thank you for your time, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Colleagues, I have one more speaker before I bring in the seconder and the proposer, and that is Councillor Bates. I intend to make him the last speaker before I introduce those other two. So please do not now add to it. I think we've debated this for long enough. So, Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll be glad to know quick. Anybody that's been through Erith knows how narrow it is, knows how close the houses are. They go straight from their front door straight onto the outside. Can I just clarify the matter in respect of who makes the decision? My understanding from officers is that the decision for reclassification of any road from an A to a B or whatever is delegated from the Department of Transport to this authority. So with that clarification, Mr. Chairman, I will be voting in favour of Bill's motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Bates. Councillor Criswell, you reserved your right to speak. Do you wish to come in now?
Yes, please, Chairman. Thank you very much. And really just to say this is not just about the road so much as the people that live alongside the road, and nowhere is that more so than in the village of Erith, as we've heard before, which I am proud to represent. The A1123 is Erith High Street. Aspirations in the 1970s for a village bypass have long since been dismissed. Anything I can do to lessen the impact on their lives and properties, I will gladly do. This motion has emerged from the work of the Central Diamond Working Group, which I chaired, and that centred specifically on the area around the 1123. As a result, we could see that introducing weight restrictions was going to be difficult. We gathered lots of data which will be used in the future, but really it's left the issue of the A1123 unresolved. And of course, Conservative councillors are concerned about roads across the whole county, but that's a different issue. As we've already heard, it's on the forward agenda plan for the Highways and Transport Committee, and the working group looking at that actually meets for the first time on the 20th of January. So we are looking into the wider area. Councillor Hunt and I have wrestled with the issue of traffic on the A1123 for too long. Now, increasingly, it is impacting on residents in St Ives and Houghton, and I have been copied into many emails raising issues with Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Fuller and Councillor Bates. Many HCVs have legitimate business within what we call the Central Diamond. However, they should return to the A14 in the south and the A141 and 142 in the north as soon as practicable, and should certainly not be travelling through it as a through route. A move to B classification will emphasise that fact and make other measures and speed reduction measures more understandable and acceptable in the future, Chairman. I will be supporting this motion as it's specific to the A1123 and the members that represent communities along it. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, I muted myself there. Thank you, Councillor Criswell. I muted myself, colleagues, because I have a Bengal cat and she's sounding off behind me. I didn't want you to have to listen to her. Councillor Hunt, you can now sum up if you wish to.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd just like to make a few points. Of members have suggested. Councillor Dupre, in her very florid comments, I think got a few things wrong. The clear officer briefing says that when there is a bypass is a typical example of when a road should be declassified. And I wonder what her description of the Ely bypass was, if it wasn't a bypass. And I rather wonder why you couldn't consider the A14, all £1.5 billion of it, as a bypass. So I'm confused by her comments. She admits, and I'm glad she admits, that there is a blight on the traffic on the road in question. So I'm glad she's admitted it's a blight. I'm not surprised really that the people on, if we were in the chamber, on the other side of a chamber, are trying to kick this down the road, do nothing but criticise and just think, oh, we wouldn't have done that. I'm in favour of it, however. The fact is, if you reduce the traffic on the road, you will reduce the need for maintenance. And I quote the 20p corner in Wilburton, where HCVs turn right, and within the last few years, quite a few thousands, and I'm talking substantial thousands, was spent on the potholes on that junction after a lady was injured because their heavy goods vehicles dug holes in the road. So the maintenance would reduce. I think Councillor Bradman is just annoyed that she didn't think of it first. And I think there's just a straight bit of envy there. And when Councillor Giles was talking about declassifying, if there's less traffic down the road, why not declassify it? Why not turn it from an A road, which should connect major urban conurbations, not country roads? So maybe there's a case somewhere near St Neots for a road to be downgraded. I think Councillor van der Ven is just thinking again, oh dear, yes, let's either load up a local request onto this one, and if it was so important to her, why hasn't she done something about it? And I think that I would like to get the leader's comments, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, that is, when she said she is not against the A1123 being turned into a B. She has said, as the leader of the Liberal Democrats, she's not against it. So I'd be interested to see how she votes in the recording votes. I appreciate Councillor Bates's comments, and I also underline Councillor Count's comments where he says, drive along the road. It isn't a major A road. It isn't. Go through Hadnam, go through Streatham, go through Wickham, go through Erith, go through Bluntisham, go through even, you know, all the villages down there. This is not an A road. Please think about the residents of these villages and also the people who would gain as well, like the people in Histon and Cottenham. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll support this this motion. I've thought about it long and hard and worked on it quite substantially. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Could we now move to the recorded vote, please? Could you conduct that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Members,
what's your motion?
We'll wait for the vote to just come up on the screen before I, yeah. Members in favour of the motion, please click the buttons marked for and submit. Members against the motion, please click the buttons marked against and submit. Members wishing to abstain, please click the buttons marked abstain and submit. Can the host please confirm that everyone has voted, and then if so, close the vote?
Before you do that, Councillor Bailey, you have put your hand up. I'm not sure why, and you're showing.
I wanted some clarification about the process, because I thought I'd asked for a recorded vote, and I thought that meant that all the names were going to be read out so that we could hear how people are voting.
When we got to the end, I was going to ask the same question of Mrs. Rowe as to how they are actually recorded, but you beat me to it. So, Mrs. Rowe.
I've got it, Michelle, if that helps. So standing orders and recorded votes say that if 14 members present demand it, the names for and against the motion or amendment or abstaining from voting will be recorded and entered into the minutes. So there's nothing set out in standing orders that says it has to be an oral vote.
All right. So what we're saying is they don't have to be read out here and now at this council meeting, but they will be recorded in the minutes how each individual.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. So hopefully, if Dan is in a position as host to give us the results of the vote.
56 have voted so far, Chair. That leaves one person again.
So are we okay to close the vote, Chair?
Yes, we are.
The results of the vote is therefore as follows. 37 in favour, no against, and 19 abstentions. Therefore, the motion is carried.
Thank you, colleagues. Colleagues, we've been
well done, Bill.
Can we get remarks private, please, folks? Can we? We've been going for 2 hours now. There are a number of people participating in this meeting who couldn't just simply switch their videos and audios off and go and make a cup of tea or whatever they were doing. So out of deference to those, I'm going to suggest we have a 10-minute break because I have no idea how long the next motion is going to take. So could I suggest we come back at 5 to 1, please?
Chairman, I do have to leave, I'm afraid, at 1 o'clock.
Who's speaking? Sorry, I lost.
Councillor MacDonald.
Oh, hello, Councillor MacDonald. Yeah, well, as I said, there is one motion to go, and then questions of the combined authority. Hopefully you won't miss too much.
Chairman, can I also say that at 1 o'clock I have to leave. I've got a hospital appointment, so
Fine.
Sign off. Wish
No
you all the
problem.
best.
Might leave myself, but that wouldn't be appropriate because that means Liz Every would have to take over.
Why not? Go on.
Right, 5-1 then, folks. Thank you.
Max, same for me. I have to leave at 1.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Thanks, David.
Pity they didn't read it out.
If you're going to have a chit chat, can I get you to switch your mics off? Hello. There we go.
Hello, Chairman.
Hello. I was just wondering when we were all coming back. Right. Hopefully we're all present. Can't tell from one screen. So we now move to the third motion submitted by Councillor Dupre. And I ask Councillor Dupre to move and speak to her motion as set out on page 5 of the council agenda. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I'm asking the council today to stand with the Local Government Association and engage actively with the government to get it to release funding from its National Citizen Service Scheme and the £500 million from the Youth Investment Fund, which it promised in September 2019 to be used on local youth provision to meet local needs. Spending by local authorities on youth services nationally has reduced by 69% in the last 10 years, with the loss of more than 4,500 youth work jobs and the closure of 750 youth centres. Cambridgeshire has not been immune from this. Its budget for youth provision has dropped by over 25% in that period, not allowing for inflation. And everyone knows of a youth club or youth provision in their area that used to exist and now no longer does. Young people in Cambridgeshire, as everywhere else, need to be able to go somewhere that is accessible, affordable, and safe, and which offers them positive opportunities. It is entirely wrong that 95p in every pound the government spends on youth provision is spent on its short-term citizen service scheme with a declining audience, rather than on week-in, month-out services for young people in their local communities. As a former member of this council's Innovate and Cultivate panel, awarding grants to local organisations wanting to transform their communities, it was hugely frustrating to hear the repeated message that this council does not make grants available for general youth services when they are precisely what is needed. An amendment to this motion has been put forward by Councillor Criswell. It does somewhat alter the motion, otherwise it would not be an amendment, but in my view, it does not do so sufficiently to cause unnecessary disagreement. So, because it's Christmas, I'm accepting Councillor Criswell's amendment into the original motion, and I'm hereby moving them as one. I hope this motion as amended will achieve unanimous support today, and I hope that we can move forward as a council on the important task of getting the government to release this money to where it can do real good in our communities and meet the pressing needs of our young people.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Right, threw me a bit there, but that's fine. We'll get my thoughts that you're accepting Councillor Criswell's amendments.
Yes.
So, Councillor Criswell, your hand is shown. Are you content with that? Is that your acceptance?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased that Councillor Dupre has accepted this, and I would like to second it and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay, I need to check with Councillor Dupre because Councillor Simone Taylor was second your original one. I don't mind who seconds it, but given that you're accepted Councillor Criswell's amendment, do you wish him to second? Or do you wish to have Simone Taylor? So I'm giving you the option.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think I would rather leave it to Councillor Taylor, as it's as she very kindly agreed to second. Whether she would still like to second, which I'd be delighted at, or whether she is happy to speak. I know she had things that she wanted to say.
Thank you for that. I'll ask Councillor Simone Taylor now to indicate. Councillor Taylor, would you like to continue to second it, although you now know it's been amended, the amendment by Councillor Chris?
No, I'm happy with the amendment. Yes, yes, please. I'd like to second.
Are you wish to reserve your right?
No, I'd like to speak now, if possible.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Before I do talk about motion, I would like to, and I hope members would join me in expressing condolences to the family in Amesbury who lost their 2 children in a tragic house fire last Thursday. St Neots is in shock and many people are grieving. Our community have been strong in offering help. St Neots Community Support Group are the main point of contact if anyone wishes to offer help. I would also like to thank the emergency services for their support at this very sad time. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak on that.
Councillor Taylor, yeah, I think the council would support you in that, and again send all our best to the family and we at this terrible tragic time. Thank you for that. But you may continue now to.
Thank you.
Counted that against your time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel the provisions that Cambridgeshire County Council support for our youth are becoming fewer. I was disappointed to read at our Children's and Young People's meeting on 15th September this year that the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, the awards scheme, would only run the Gold Residential Awards through the educational outdoor centres after the roles of the award manager and the linked role of the young people's worker were to be made redundant. The gold award is 16 years plus. The silver award is for the age range of 15 years plus, and the bronze is for 14 years plus. So within that scope, we're only going to be able to provide the support for 16 year plus. So I would urge you all to look at your local youth services and centres in your parishes and towns and cities. I did a brief look, and I found one support youth centre run by Cambridgeshire County Council in St Neots. Again, this is aged 16 to 18, unless there is a EHCP involved, which then the age group would go up to 24. I would hope that you all will understand the need for this motion to enable our communities to provide, set up youth centres at our local level and provide our council the funding it needs to continue but grow our youth support provision for a wider age range. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Claire Richards.
Yes, thank you. So I support this motion. I believe strongly in young people developing skills in working with local communities, engaging voluntary work and on, offering opportunities for communities to come together, creating shared values in our society and so on and so on. Thing is, the best practice I have seen in the development of these skills to the curriculum actually in school, diplomas and so good at it. And also it's ongoing where there's a place overseen by skilled and trained workers. And that's what I think is very important if we offer anything beyond the curriculum. So it needs to be properly funded. So I'll leave it there, but I will be supporting this motion.
Sorry, Councillor Whitehead. Sorry, I'm muted there.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I strongly support this motion. Having been on the Children and Young People's Committee since 2013, have seen with regret, as indeed I think all members of that committee have, that the reduction in the amount of finance available for youth services. One thing I particularly want to draw attention to is we used to do excellent work going into schools, working with potential needs, that is pupils who potentially would be not in either education, employment or training. And we had a very, very successful programme working with pupils in year 9 and in year 10 to try and ensure that they did not end up in that position. And it was with regret that that funding was curtailed and we did not do as much, and we did not do that personalised programme any longer. It would be great if we could get money back to actually do that, because it really is, seems to me, absolutely important that we get young people into employment or education, because the upshot of nowhere for young children, nowhere for young people to go, no opportunities, can lead them, sadly, in some cases, into the criminal justice system. And I think that is something we all wish to avoid at all costs. So I would very, very strongly support this motion and thank Councillor Dupre for bringing it.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Bywater.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I welcome this amended motion. It's very positive. I just want to touch on a few things, really, Chairman. Just one quickly in relation to the Duke of Edinburgh that Councillor Simon Taylor mentioned. It's my understanding, yes, it has been restructured, but I actually do support the Duke of Edinburgh. You know, I'm out map reading with 12, 13-year-olds at our local school. So to claim it's, you know, 16 plus is possibly a little bit misleading, because it does happen within some of our secondary schools still. Over the past few years, I've been the lead member for the National Citizen Service. I've been the champion for the service, which has seen me engaging with the staff and young people in that process. And I'm absolutely amazed by some of the work that's been happening within our NCS, and it's nationally recognised and well respected by all our schools and a lot of our education establishments within the county. They've engaged with a huge amount of vulnerable young people, particularly SEND children and our NEET population that have been engaged on the NCS programme. And I've particularly enjoyed seeing these young people come into the system and progressing during the programmes, to see how confident individuals they come out the back of it, and also to witness some of the stuff they've been doing, the community engagement, the social interaction that they've had off the back of it, and ultimately fundraising for some of our charities within Cambridgeshire. I'd also like to thank some of the members who've been on the NCS programme and acted as dragons when we've played the Dragon's Den. It's been hugely beneficial to those young people, and they've obviously come up with some cracking ideas off the back of it. I also just want members to be aware that I've actually taken time to write to our MPs in relation to the £500 million Youth Intervention Fund, and ask them to bring it forward, you know, get it on track and make a decision over it ASAP. And also about prioritising provision within our NCS. You're absolutely right, it doesn't reach out to everybody, so we do potentially need to look at how we get greater control over it. And I've asked MPs that we need to do that, really. So I'll close there. I'm happy to support this motion. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bywater. Councillor Criswell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we welcome the proposal, the proposed government £500 million Youth Investment Fund, and of course would like to attract as much as possible into Cambridgeshire. There are numerous youth projects we can support, and I'm pleased to hear that Councillor Bywater has been lobbying for that funding to come forward. This council is also a keen supporter of the National Citizen Service, as we've also heard from Councillor Bywater. It gives a formal brand that is nationally recognised and provides funding for extremely valuable work. It helps to develop young people to become good citizens and can focus on more marginalised groups. However, this does lead to a very rigid model of delivery for a very specific cohort of young people. The funding is channeled through primary contractors and impact is measured through numbers of participants. We would like to use our established links with the NCS Trust to seek a review on how their funding is delivered and targeted. Through a more direct relationship with the Trust, we could develop local delivery programs that offer a more flexible outcome-based approach without losing the core principles for which the NCS is nationally respected. Through our successful Think Communities way of working and the impending rollout of our place-based service delivery through Cambridgeshire Local, we could prioritise young people who may not fit into the current NCS criteria. A prime example would be young carers who could not commit to a rigid residential programme, but could so easily benefit from a more flexible approach. Chairman, although well-intentioned, the original motion did not go far enough to meet our aspirations and how we can benefit young people. So I'm very grateful that Councillor Dupre has agreed with the Conservative position. And just to reassure her, the Cultivate Fund does in fact support youth work as we now have an off-the-peg model for a community youth worker. So with that, I will be supporting the motion, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Criswell. Councillor Downs.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to make an extra point about this, why this is important. People may not be aware, but the trend in schools over the last few years has been a reduction in extracurricular opportunities. There are all sorts of reasons for this, of the funding pressure, greater emphasis on narrow academic results, all sorts of things that have taken place. But one of the results is that the opportunities offered even within the school context for broader development have been reduced. And that is why it is essential that this money is released and it is used in the way that Councillor Dupre is recommending. So I hope we can really all support this for a whole range of reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. I'm not seeing any more speakers. Councillor Dupre, do you wish to sum up on this?
Thank you, Chairman. I will do so very briefly, as it appears that there's broad consensus around this, and I would like to very much welcome the comments made by Councillors Simone Taylor, Joan Whitehead and Peter Downs, and their recognition of the issues here and their points about the shortfalls of current provision. I was very pleased to hear both Councillor Bywater and Councillor Criswell refer to the need for greater local control and greater reach and greater flexibility, and their recognition of the rigidity of what is currently on offer. I do very much hope that this council will move forward successfully with government and release that trapped money and put it to good locally tailored use for all year round youth provision locally, which is so desperately needed. And I very much hope that this motion will be unanimously supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I think, as Councillor Dupre said, there appears to be general consensus in support of the motion as it has been changed. So I don't think we're going to need to move to a vote, but if anybody disagrees with that, could they please show by raising their hand now? In that case, thank you all. I think we've accepted the motion as put by Councillor Dupre and with the changes agreed with Councillor Criswell. So that concludes discussion of the three motions. Thank you for that. We now move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is questions. We now consider item 9A, which is Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, an overview and scrutiny committee, oral questions, which will be dealt with in accordance with the protocol set out in Annex 1 of Part 4.1 of the Council's procedure rules of the Council's Constitution. The generic report summarising the decisions made by the Combined Authority formal committees is included on the Council agendas, pages 31 to 62. Can you now please click the raised hand function if you wish to ask a question or make a comment? Not seeing any clicked hands. No. So, just making sure I move on to the right part. So if there are no questions of Councillor Count or of Councillors Connor and Scott, I will then move us on to item 9B, which is written questions. A response to the 4 written questions received has been provided to the political groups before the meeting and published on the Council's website. Technically, that concludes the business on the agenda for today. I would like to thank members for their contributions. But before you leave, can I ask the Chief Executive to pass on to our staff our good wishes for Christmas? And can I now wish everyone here a happy and safe Christmas? And if I can make reference to the 3 magi that appear in these nativity plays and that we know, please be wise, be cautious for Christmas. Thank you all. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Happy Christmas, everyone.